Here we go.
Yeah.
Tony, and who is this guy?
Yeah, who are you?
Who is this guy?
What's your name?
I have stage fright. Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Matthew. It's nice to be on the podcast with Movie Milkers.
Thanks for
Long-time
being on.
listener,
Yeah.
first-time talker.
First time talker, yeah.
First-time milker.
Yeah, he's a new milker.
You're a milker now.
I'm going to milk this performance. I got my
Yeah.
logo. I'm decked out. I'm advertising.
Yeah, shout out. Give all the
Shout
shout
out.
outs.
Shout outs.
Well, yeah, Matthew or Matt? How do you prefer?
Doesn't matter to me.
Mr. M.
Just don't call me late.
He's awesome. He always rents out the theaters to see the Marvel releases on the night of, not just the week of, the night of, Thursday nights.
Early screening.
That's
Yeah.
right. Shout out to Star Cinema Grill. They gave me an amazing deal. We not only do their exterior cleaning, we do host the Marvel premieres. Thinking about calling them Matt's Marvelous Nights. So if you want tickets, hit me up. We do it for every single one.
Yes.
That's good.
Yes.
That's good.
So-
And now coming to the same theater, we're going to be shooting our podcast the night of the movie premiere so that we can get you the reviews the very same day it releases.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Heard it
That'd be
here
awesome.
first, folks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so let's see. We watched Antman this last Thursday. So we're going to do this podcast a little different, right? We're going to do the first half is going to be spoiler free to see if to gauge if you really want to see it, not give away anything. But then the next half, we'll list the time in the video of when you can skip to so we can talk about all the good stuff.
Good at it.
All right. But we're still going to go through our categories to start with. So our first one, well, do we want to go through initial thoughts right after we watched Ant-Man?
I say let's go through the categories first, kind of give our checks or X's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and go from there. And then
Sweet.
we can kind of at the very end put all our checks and X's together, give you our overall score from 3 random audience members with different perspectives, and let you know once we put those together, do we think this film is worth seeing?
Good idea.
Yeah.
So what's the first category, Marshall?
First category, let's go with production.
Production, okay.
Okay.
So for the audience who haven't been a part of this podcast before, what goes into the production category for us? What are we basing this off of?
Production, well, it's got to be for, especially these types of films, green screen.
Green
How does everything
screen,
look?
props
props.
and companies behind it, Disney and
Costumes.
yeah, the camera, because there's different types of cameras. There's IMAX cameras, and then there's normal cameras, and how they made the movie, basically how it looks like.
Yeah. Like all the nerdy programs it took to, make Ant-Man look big and small.
Costume design, the new suits, what else? Yeah, stuff like that. Not cameos. That's not.
But all the technology stuff.
Technology stuff, yeah, and basic stuff. So for this one, what do you think?
I think it was pretty good. I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was all right. I feel like I heard it being compared to Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
I heard that a lot as
Yeah.
well.
Is that just because of the George Lopez head, or?
I don't.
Oh, you know what? The suits actually kind of look the same too. It's the same color schemes.
Yeah.
You have the yellow suit and the red suit, which is the same thing as Junie and Cortez or whatever her name was.
That's really true.
yeah, no, that
Have yet
that
to
just
see
broke my
these.
mind. So when I went through this movie and as I was watching it, I feel like some people would have compared it to Star Wars and like the universe building
Yes.
and
Yeah.
kind of the scale of the sci-fi.
Yeah.
But for me, it was more like a kid's version of a Rick and Morty. It was like Rick and Morty without all the crassness and one big curse word.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's what I said. I thought it was like Star Wars. There's specific parts where like the planets kind of look the same. But I mean, that's kind of the whole movie is where they're in just a huge, just undescribable type, not even world, but just universe.
It's a universe, a really tiny universe. That makes any sense.
There was no like actual sets, like you said that, Tony.
Yeah,
there was
there
no
was-
actual sets. It was just green screen. The
It
entire
was
time.
just for the most part, yeah, and most of the creatures also. I felt like all the ones that looked human were definitely actors, but anything that wasn't human was definitely some sort of CGI produced.
Yeah.
So for you, for your production grade, you give it a check or an X?
Honestly, I didn't like it because I felt like it needed more actual real props. I feel like and there was too much green screen for my taste personally. Like when they were flying that huge stingray type of thing. I mean, I tried paying attention to the shadows and it wasn't even like
Nerd.
yeah, like
The
detailed.
shadows.
There is no shadows on the stingray. So I was like a little bit, I feel like they just rush things. And that's a problem they've been having with Marvel. Have you guys heard that they're underpaying their visual effects team? They're putting like really solid deadlines really fast. For Thor: Love and Thunder, that was a big problem. And I feel like they're just
For Black Widow too.
for Black Widow. Yeah, there was
Black Widow was a big problem. Yeah.
and I feel like they still haven't changed that. Compare Ant-Man to say Avatar: The Way of Water.
Oh.
Huge
It's
difference.
just mean.
Huge way difference.
Yeah.
Like you can totally tell, and they're made by technically the same team. Disney.
Right.
They own both of them, but they throw Ant-Man. Whatever. Just get it out there, complete the checkbox. And versus Avatar, they take their time, make everything beautiful, perfect. So I feel like for production, at least in this category, they didn't try their best. They just get the story out there, paint the green screen, and call it a day. But that's just me.
Yeah. I will say that like I did notice like some areas that didn't look like as good as what you expect in a Marvel movie. But overall, like I thought it was good enough. So I'm gonna give it a check. What do you think, Matt?
For me, I'm going to go ahead and give this one an X. I feel kind of similar in that the production was pretty much all green screen, which isn't a problem whenever you have something like Avatar where it is cinematically beautiful. And don't get me wrong, there were some scenes that were just awesome. Like the backgrounds and things like that they did create in this whole new universe was incredible. The buildings were alive,
Yeah.
so many different characters and character designs that I was just fascinated with, and I wanted to learn more about that realm. Universe building was beautiful, but the entire thing was just green screen and mocap suits, and you could really tell there was more than one scene where Scott Lang and his daughter Cassie were running, and I could tell they just used the same shots of them running, and they used it twice.
Yeah.
Like it was literally just
Copy,
the same
paste.
exact thing, copy and paste. They're like, okay, well we're running again.
Yeah.
Copy and paste.
Yeah.
So that was my issue with the production. We didn't see anything new when it came to costume design and stuff like that. I will say they gave Kang a comic accurate costume, and that was really cool to see.
Yeah.
Finally,
But I think that's going to go more into our story when it comes to developing the characters.
for sure.
But for me, too much green screen and not done in a way that's well enough to justify it all being green screen.
So there it is. 2
Very
out of
well
the
put.
3.
2 out of the
Boom. That's an X. Disney,
X.
pay your peeps.
Yeah, do better. Don't be
I
big.
still like you guys.
Yeah, they're good. Just they
You're
could-
pushing it. All right. Second one. Let's go with directing.
Directing. We were talking about this. Remember the execution. The vision is there, but maybe the execution wasn't done right. Was it the director's fault? Who was the director for this one?
It was
Phone's up
Peyton
there.
Reed, I believe.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
Well,
That's concerning because
yeah.
if we don't know the director, that means he's
2 out of
not-
3 of us don't know the director.
yeah. I mean, really, the past 2 Ant-Man movies have been more of just like a comedy, feel-good type, just fun movie. Nothing too serious. And they finally like throw some heavy stakes into this one and trying to keep that same kind of vibe going. But maybe kind of missed the mark there.
So it's an X for you.
It's Peyton Reed. Did he direct also the other Ant-Man movies?
I believe you did. Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Quickly, I know we kind of glossed over it already, but Marshall, can you give us a little bit of background for the new listeners? What all goes into the direction category that we're giving the X's and the checks for?
Right. The director, is basically, the secret recipe to the movie, right? How everything, not only like the plot, but how everything is supposed to run. Almost like the manager of the entire movie to make sure that everything is closely envisioned to how the director has it in their head. So overall,
I'm checking out this guy,
What?
Peyton Reed, right now, and he has a bunch of rom-coms under his belt. The Breakup, Yes Man, The Love Bug, Down with Love. So this guy's not a sci-fi director. He's a comedy romantic, which you can totally see in most of the Ant-Man movies, there's romance, there's comedy, but I feel like maybe sci-fi isn't his strong suit. That's why sometimes it feels like it falls short. But I could be wrong. I'm just glossing over his resume, and doesn't feel like his sci-fi is the strongest.
Yeah, I agree with you there, especially for the stakes being risen, introducing the next phase's huge supervillain. And Kang is, was this the right timing for this movie? I mean, overall, it was, very fun to watch. But, is it really doing a great job at setting the cornerstone for the next phase?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was definitely a Kang. It wasn't his introduction, because when was he introduced? Loki. He was introduced in Loki. So that was his introduction, which I thought was really well done. This is more of a continuation and see how far he can be. Yeah, it was. I feel like they're just saving his potential. They don't want to use all of it right away, right?
Yeah, well, what do you think about the directing, Matt?
So, my opinion on the directing of this was it was an X for me. For the category, just overall, it was an X. That being said, understanding now Peyton Reed's background for directing is mostly rom-coms and these kind of heart-of-the-story tales and goofiness. Mm-hmm. He knocked that out of the park like he usually does with this.
Yeah,
Sci-fi being completely out of his belt, I'm surprised to hear that because they did a good job with the world building. Like, it was very creative and fun, but when it comes to the execution of the vision, I just think it fell flat. For sure. That's where it is for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, and right there with you.
I agree with that. I mean, Peyton Reed, I bet you're a great director, but at least for the first two movies, I feel like he did better. Am I wrong?
I do think that. I think that's going to fall more into the story category for me. But yeah, I do think this isn't the best iteration. Definitely not the best MCU. Yeah. They kind of took what was the heart of Antman, is a story about this man who's lost time with his daughter and is trying to get it back, and they kind of used that again here for the third time and didn't do it the best it's been done. And so unfortunately it fell flat.
Yeah.
But we'll get more into that when it comes to the stories and whenever it comes into the spoiler section of our podcast.
Yes. But since we kind of glazed over, let's go over to writing. Oh, well, directing, Triple X.
Triple X. Like the movie with Vin Diesel.
If you know it's got 3 X's, it's not going to be directed well.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go into writing. Similar category, writing. Mom. This is,
writing.
Probably one of the most important parts of...
For sure. Like the plot and the twists and the plot twists. And
how the story is told. How it's... Not only how it's, presented to you, that's more of production, but, just the ground basis of the entire movie. How it runs. And, It was a movie. It was a Marvel movie for sure.
It was that's exactly what I told you when as soon as it was over, you're like, "What did you think?" And I'm like, "It's a Marvel movie."
I don't think that's fair. Well, here's the thing, because Marvel has really changed the game because they've been so popular. They've knocked some things really far out of the park. There's a lot of missteps, but I don't think it's fair to put Marvel as a negative connotation for things. But
you're gonna have to talk to Bellin about that one.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong. Like the way cinema is looked at because of Marvel now, and how it's more of just pushing productions out right now, is the Marvelization of it. That's a real thing, and that can be negative. But to put Marvel down as a whole,
no, it's not fair. Which is true. Yes.
Yeah, it's a good point. Marvelization, not necessarily writing.
That being said, I've literally said this walking out of a movie like Thor: Love and Thunder. I have been very open about my contempt for that movie. And it's really my fault because I got excited for a Thor film.
And yeah, that was a mistake.
That's not Marvel's fault. That's on me. Right, I saw the first 3 and I was like, you know what? I think this is going to be great. I don't care that the other ones weren't the best. This movie looks fantastic. And then I saw it and it sucked. And I was like, I can't blame Marvel. They just presented it again for a 4th time. And I was like, this one's going to be different. They can change.
And
which didn't exactly happen. That's a great way to distinguish that. Because at the end of the day, it does come down to, well, are we watching the Marvel movies?
Yeah, but it's also like, we're going into an Ant-Man movie and we're expecting Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we gotta
True.
lower expectation for what it is as well. That being said, did it hit my expectations? No. But that's because the movie I built in my head is better.
Right.
We'll get into that later, though.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true. Which is what you said. The idea is what gets people excited. You know, there's King, the big bad. He's gonna finally go up against an Avenger, Ant-Man, who is like very tiny. I mean, how is it gonna play out? Is he gonna lose? How is he gonna win? And when you see how it happens, you're like, oh, okay. I mean, it's cool, but
I mean, I will say they did do a good part at like kind of trying to make it make sense, you know, because Ant-Man obviously has no chance against King.
King the Conqueror.
But you know, they made it. It's a superhero movie. You know, there's gonna be a struggle and an even kind of balance there. But and there were also a bunch of good kind of like heartfelt moments in here.
Yeah.
They may have seemed like a bit rushed at times, but I do feel like they did establish like certain characters, which we'll get to in a second, to have their certain themes kind of shine in this movie.
It's a feel-good movie, right?
Yeah, it was a fun, feel-good movie for sure. But let's get down to the rating system. Marshall, where are you at?
Yeah.
You got a check or an X?
Writing on this one. This one's tough. I'm really kind of on the edge here. I'm gonna go with the close X here. I mean, I thought like they tried to do good with implementing like hardcore themes and stuff in the middle of all the green screenness going on, but I just think it wasn't enough. They could have spent more time in the actual dialogue.
Yeah.
I actually thought that it was good. Like, the movie was decent. I was like all right with it. I wasn't angry at it or I was upset about it. I was just like, okay, they did an Ant-Man movie, like you said. They did another one, but then he presented an even better version of the movie, and I was like, okay, yeah, it sucked. I mean,
I ruined it for you?
I mean, kind of, yeah, because I liked his version better, because I thought what it could have been, and because what I saw, I was like, okay, that's fine. I mean, it was the movie, that's it. But then he like had a better idea how it could have gone, and I'm like, yeah, it could have been better. So, I mean, not thanks to you, but like you opened my eyes a little bit. You like what it could have been instead, and I was like, yeah. So it's an X for me.
Yeah, I think unfortunately on story it's going to be an X for me as well, which is disappointing to say. I was looking forward to an Ant-Man movie, but when it came down to it, there were a lot of really cool concepts, and even what they presented in the trailer, they really found the core of what the story was supposed to be, and instead of capitalizing on it through the storyline, it all just kind of fell flat. They tried to introduce too much, and they didn't explore it enough to where anything really made sense or mattered. The thing at the very end of this is, we were joking about it earlier, this is a vegan movie. There were no real stakes.
There were no real stakes. I love it.
It was fake meat.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the Impossible Burger of Marvel movies.
But one thing about those is like whenever you have that, Impossible Whopper, you're kind of like, well, it's
it's all right.
It's not bad.
It's not
I would
horrible.
definitely eat it again.
yeah.
But is it what I'm going to look for? Like when I'm like, oh, I want a really good burger, I'm never going to be, hey, let me get an Impossible Whopper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, like, are all Marvel movies going to be Impossible Whoppers for here on out? That's what Bellin would say.
Bellin is very against, the quality of movies. I mean, but like you said, we expect now everything to be like Avengers level Endgame, and that's not fair for the other movies because they do have their own little things. I guarantee you, somebody out there, this has been their favorite movie of all time. And you gotta respect
people have said
that's probably is. Hopefully, he wasn't just going for a paycheck. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But here's where I kind of think of it too: is not just like we got excited for an Ant-Man movie. When we look back at Marvel as a whole, which has been 20 years of this now, which is insane.
Yeah, it's insane.
But like we look back and we're like, Robert Downey Jr. is the most iconic superhero of all time. Like his superhero, his Iron Man was god tier. The best to ever do it. We'd do anything to have him back. Joe Rogan is literally telling him to his face, you have to come back, man. You were the best. But we forget that, like, when we were watching his movies, people hated it. Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3 were some of the most crapped upon movies that ever came out. But now when people look back, they're like, man, Iron Man was the best. I'd give anything for another Iron Man movie. But you won't even watch Iron Man 2.
Yeah. Nobody's going to watch Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
they did a really good job, and this is where I think they should do with Ant-Man going forward. His story should not be his own movie. Same thing with Thor. He doesn't need a 5th movie. Ant-Man doesn't need a 4th movie. We want them in the universe, so keep them as a side character where they can contribute to the story like Iron Man did in like Civil War. He was not the main person in that story, but he did such a good job adding to the story arc of his character throughout all the movies, going into Endgame, but also adding to the story of Civil War and giving kind of the opposite position that you needed. Like, he did brilliant. There was so much character development and having him there, but not running his own show.
Yeah, while not running the own show.
So,
yeah, and that's,
like Bellum could be right. We don't need 15 Marvel projects coming out in a year. I love them and I'll watch them. It's something to do, especially during the pandemic.
Sure.
But yeah, we are kind of oversaturating the market with it. And like, let's focus on story and not so much quantity. And so hopefully they won't all be Impossible Whoppers going forward.
Right.
We're going to get some nice Five Guys burgers.
I mean, Kevin Feige did come out a couple weeks ago and said, like, yeah, we have had too many Marvel shows. We're going to cut back on those. So, I mean, that could be good. I mean, and possibly one of the, main problems with this and kind of most of the Marvelization right now is just they're cutting down like how much they can spend on each movie so they can save up for the next one. Like, well, if we took more time into making this movie, maybe it'd be a little better. But anyway.
And I think one of the things too when it comes to Marvel, the thing that's really set them apart and made them fantastic is also kind of where they're failing a little bit too, because where you look at the difference between Marvel and DC, DC studio interference was insane.
Horrible.
Zack Snyder going through everything, talking about like how much the studio was interfering. You could even see Joss Whedon coming in with a completely different vision on the same movie.
Horrible, yeah.
But you go all the way back to like the Almost Superman Lives with Nicolas Cage, and they talk about like Kevin Smith, who is a world famous director and dialogue expert, was talking about he wanted to write the Superman movie so bad, but the studio really wanted a giant spider. And he's like, I don't know if I can make this work. And then they come out with Wild Wild West a year later, and there's the giant spider. They got their spider that the test audience wanted. But Marvel does a really good job of saying, hey, here's the overall vision we have. We had a really good story arc going for the Infinity Saga. This is where we wanted to be. Here's kind of the core story that we have. Director, take it away. And they gave them the freedom that DC didn't have, and where DC failed and the studio was interfering with everything and had say over everything. They did the same thing in Marvel, and it worked out really well when you have James Gunn, or you have the Russo brothers who did Civil War and Winter Soldier and then the Avengers movies. But then you have guys like Peyton Reed, who has mostly done rom-coms, and now they give him, hey, you're going to introduce Phase 5 and the biggest villain that we've ever seen here,
He's
supposedly.
Like,
Yeah.
Take it away.
and he's like,
that's a tough ask.
what?
Yeah, that's a tough ask, and I don't put that fully on Peyton Reed, but they spread themselves too thin, and Kevin Feige couldn't have a quality control hand over it, and there wasn't as many people watching out there like, hey, you've done 2 of these, go for it.
Yeah.
True. I'm
So-
at a loss of words.
So we're all at another 3.
right. Writing. We were in writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And writing. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the next category?
Let's go ahead and do acting.
Acting.
So acting,
Oh. Actors.
pretty awesome cast for this whole entire movie. Of course, we got Paul Rudd, always amazing.
Yeah.
Always amazing.
Can't fail.
Can't remember the name of Wasp.
I got you.
Or
It's
Evangeline Lilly.
Evangeline Lee.
She was good.
That's why I'm here.
Her part in this movie was non-existent, I will say. She could have had some more.
She was just
lines.
fighting the whole time. I don't think there was a moment where they actually needed her. It's expected.
That's true. She does. She does like play. She is the Wasp in this movie.
She's just the one.
She's still there.
He's a
And
fly
then
on the wall in this movie.
literally, and then we have Dr. Pym, renowned actor Michael Douglas. He only had like 5 lines in the movie, but
He was there.
he was there.
It was
And
kind
then
of just there.
Michelle Pfeiffer. I feel like her role,
Was
she's
increased.
probably the main character of the
Mhm.
entire film.
I mean, at least for the first part, that was really intense. I want to say. I'm sorry. You go. You go. Yeah.
Oh, no,
You
I
keep
think
going.
I think her acting was okay. Her lines, and which we'll get into in the next part of why she did what she did, is questionable. But I think she did okay with what she was given. But of course, the best actor in this was Jonathan Majors. That guy, that guy alone whether you like this movie or not, like I'm excited for the next phase of Marvel because of Jonathan Majors. He was just phenomenal, and this we only got to see, this Jonathan Majors. Don't want to spoil anything for the next half, but there's more of him to come, obviously, and I'm really ready to see him.
And by the way, this is a different version of Jonathan Majors, we believe, than the one from Loki, the He Who Remains. Yeah. This is a different variant of him. So this is just one of the many that I believe we will see in the MCU. And that's kind of what's cool about Kang is, even if you win, where's the next one coming? Or when is the next one coming, I guess.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So for you, how do you feel about the acting? You going to give it a check or an X?
Oh, wait. Yeah, Marshall. Check.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I also kind of see this movie as, it wasn't really even about the acting. It was just kind of it looked good kind of thing.
World building.
It wasn't focused too much on the acting or the dialogue, which was back in the writing. But, it's tough because I feel like they did their best with what they were given.
Exactly. That's what we always say. Yeah. These are good actors, but
very great actors.
But it's kind of hard to work with.
But, I'm going to give them a check for what they did.
They're good actors. For sure.
Well, how are they?
So where do you rank
in this movie?
You got it a check or an X?
Okay, so their roles were definitely, I feel like they were squandered. They could have done more. The three strongest actors are Paul Rudd, Jonathan Majors, and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Well, and the daughter, let's not forget.
And the daughter, yeah, she was a strong one. I can't believe they didn't use Bill Murray though more, and I'm kind of upset. Well, I mean, he's in the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
yeah,
it could have. I feel like they squandered him too. There was a good talent in this movie. You got a lot of good stuff. Randall Park, they call him Jim from The Office, which is
the Asian Jim.
Asian Jim, yeah. He was also there, but not as much as I like. I will say this though, and I'll take my little platform. Where was Luis and his cool truck? I missed that. I know the whole representation thing and stuff, but honestly, I feel like he's like the Latino of the MCU, not really America Chavez or any of those guys, or what are they going to do with, I don't know what other Mexican superhero they're going to pull up, but he was a cool guy, and I missed him. He was funny, and they could have done another one of the recaps he does on everything.
Yeah, that was a continual thing. He was one of the biggest parts of the Ant-Man movies.
He could have continued on with that. Also the thieves, they were cool. I feel like they were the comic relief of the last two movies, so I feel like they could have also brought this.
Well, again, given the circumstances of the movie, they were really limited in the characters that they could present.
For reals.
Versus all the characters that we were introduced to in the quantum realm.
Like, get this. Like, which character that they introduced besides Kang the Conqueror was really that memorable or that we would like to see more?
Well, there was MODOK, but tough spoiler. We'll try to wait until that last one.
Still, but like...
That's the spoiler, Tony. Now we're going to have to cut it out.
No, my bad. But
MODOK was...
We're professionals.
I'm sorry. We're still working on this, and I can't know when to be quiet. But, like, okay, bottom line, actors, they did, like you said, they did what they could, but I feel like they could have done more. So I want to give it an X, but it's not fair to them because I know they have years of experience. So I'll give it a check because they did with what they could.
Okay. Matt?
I hate to be this guy. It's going to be an X.
Oh.
And by the way, I didn't hate this movie. It just, when it comes down to the categories and when I have to be honest about what I'm seeing and how I'm rating them, it's an X for me. Granted, I don't think anyone in here had a lot to work with. Like we've kind of mentioned previously, the plot was kind of just very quick paced and going forward. But that being said, Jonathan Majors was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Jonathan Majors as Kang, he did an amazing job of I'm going to cut back to just a sec. Jonathan Majors in this movie very much reminded me of Matt Smith. I don't know if you've ever seen Matt Smith in anything. He's in the new Game of Thrones spinoff, The House of Dragons. He was also on Doctor Who. He was the Doctor for a long time.
He was in Morbius.
Another Marvel movie.
He was a great actor in that movie.
He's a fantastic actor, but the thing about Matt Smith is he knows how to play his lines. And what I mean by that is, like, even if the dialogue is horrible, like in Morbius, Matt Smith has an amazing ability, and so does Jonathan Majors
Exactly.
as Kang, to make you hang on to every word. And I was hanging on to every word that he said.
Yes.
No matter what he did, he controlled the screen. And he did such a good job of being quiet and subtle and making you really feel the sinisterism. Like, even when he was using his powers, it was just a very slight twist to the fingers, and you could feel him twisting the reality around him.
Yeah.
He did an amazing job, but the script was not there. He didn't have a lot to work with, and that's not his fault. I'm excited to see him going forward, and he has that Matt Smith tendency to just capture his audience and really draw you into what's there. But as for everyone else, there wasn't the story for that to be there. Paul Rudd was Paul Rudd. You know, I love Paul Rudd, and it was fun, and it was cool, but there was no, like, hardcore acting here. And they recasted the role of Scott Lang's daughter to Catherine Newton, who was also a very well-established actress at this point, and she had nothing good to do in this movie, and the things she did have, I wasn't really impressed with. But we'll get into, like, what I think should have happened later at the spoiler part. For right now, I have an X.
X with barely 2 checks.
Barely 2
So
checks.
acting passes. All right, so did we get all of them? We got production. We got an X on that one overall.
X. And then
We got direction.
direction.
We got an X on that one.
X.
Triple X on that one.
triple.
Writing. We got an X on that one. Acting. And then
What?
I feel like
Wait,
that
hold
was
up.
it.
He's counted 4, and you've counted 5.
I must have done something wrong. No, because cinematography.
Which one of you can't count?
cinematography.
That's
there you
the
go.
last one.
Cinematography.
Well, that kind of goes into direction, does it not?
Oh, really? Yeah,
It's
and
like production and
production.
direction. It's like a combination of both. Cinematography wise, I mean, it's just green screen, and it's kind of hard to appreciate cinematography on such a sci-fi movie. I mean, you can appreciate cinematography on a Star Wars movie.
I don't think
Yeah.
cinematography really counts for this. I think it's
Yeah.
going to go into the production. I think we've kind of covered it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we always like use the example of like Batman. Like that had like great cinematography.
Batman.
That was
Right.
where that movie shined.
And it's like saying like the difference between like the Peyton Reed rom-com movie versus like a Christopher Nolan like Dark Knight or Inception movie. Like the cinematography is going to be different. Like it just is. This wasn't meant to be a film. This was meant to be a movie. So
Good point.
That was
I don't
really
think we
well
need that
said.
category for this one, but
That's a good point.
that's also I
it's
just
a-
don't want to put another X on it.
Yeah.
It's an impossible Whopper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
It's not
Well,
a juicy. Five
So
Guys
I think
burger.
recapping overall all of our grades, I think we gave out maybe a total of maybe three checks,
So I guess
but not for the overall categories.
in the overall, like we can count up our scores and put it on the screen right now. That's kind of where we listed. But
Right here.
overall, Marshall, do you think this is a film that people should go out and see?
I think so. I mean, I'm gonna say I had a great time watching it. It was a lot of fun. I mean, yeah, of course, like I noticed like some parts that were a little quick, a little rushed, but overall, like it was an exciting movie. Like I loved like all those characters, and they really did a great job at like exploring the quantum realm, creating this whole different thing that we've never seen before. But I would go see it. Kind of maybe like excited for an Antman movie, like but it's a fun movie. Just I'd watch it. I'd watch it again too.
I like to think of these movies as episodes on a long-running series. If you miss an episode, you're gonna be like, "Well, what's going on the next one?" You kind of drop in. You're like, "Wait, who is this guy or who's this guy?" So I told this to my sister, and she gets mad. She's like, "You only watch movies because they have Marvel on them, or because Marvel slaps their name on them, and now you have to watch them." I'm like, kind of, yeah, because they have to go with the continuity. With Eternals, she didn't even bother like looking at the trailer, but I watched it. I put myself through Eternals because I wanted to know who these people were and all that. So I like Ant-Man. I watched it because I like Ant-Man. I like Paul Rudd. I like the other 2 movies. So I watched it because I like them, but also because I kind of have to at this point to continue on with the continuity. So if you're like me and you like Marvel and you have to keep up with what's going on, like a movie, like a TV show almost, you kind of have to watch it to see more of Kang, to see what position Ant-Man was left in. So that's just my opinion. Watch it because you kind of have to. But that's just me.
Watch it because you have to.
I respectfully kind of disagree with what he was saying, in that this movie I don't really think actually matters in the continuity of the MCU, without getting into any spoilers. Like, there's many variants of Kang, and we're not sure if this one's going to move forward or not. Everything else, like most Ant-Man movies, kind of stays in the Ant-Man movies. You might see a character or two go somewhere else, but like, we didn't introduce anyone that we haven't met before. We've met Kang somewhere else. We've met all the Ant-Man characters, and even then, they kind of took out all the Ant-Man characters in this movie.
Yeah,
so
they did.
This was a very self-contained story, and this was just kind of like a bottle episode when it comes to the series that is Marvel movies. That being said, if you like Kang going forward, you'll probably want to check this one out. It gives you just a little bit more of his backstory. But regardless of this movie, I mean, Kang's coming, and there's nothing we can do to stop him. So he'll be back.
Even at the end of the movie, instead of, how it usually says Thor will return, Ant-Man will return, it said Kang will return.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even catch that.
Yeah. It says Kang, not Ant-Man. They didn't say Ant-Man will return, which is his movie. It was more of a Kang at the end of it.
I didn't notice that.
I didn't even say. I do think this is a fun film. I think it's, if you're looking for something to do and you want something new to watch, or even if you wait for this to come out on Disney Plus, like, it's fun. It's worth seeing, especially if you got kids. Like, it's good to see. There was one thing that I think kids are really going to be screaming that parents probably won't be happy with. But other than that, this felt like a Rick and Morty episode that was just really dumbed down and kid-friendly. There's one scene with a really big cuss word in it that I think kids are going to be yelling everywhere, unfortunately. But outside of that, this is just a fun, quirky, mindless Star Wars kind of film. So if you're looking for that and you just want to get away and out of the real world, go see this movie.
Yeah,
if you want something that's going to be intellectual or sci-fi and really cool and something to think about, maybe skip it.
Watch Interstellar instead.
Yeah, well, and like you said, like, it's not Endgame. Guess what? We're not going to get another Endgame.
Yeah, but if you want like this sci-fi thing where you're going to be immersed in a world, like, Avatar's still out. Go see Avatar.
It's fun. Come on.
Yeah, but if you just want something that's fun and something you can take your kids to, let's go.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like, we're supposed to be entertained by movies, and maybe
and it was entertaining.
And it was entertaining. So like, they did their job, right?
They did their job.
I mean, Marvel movies have declined, but like, we are kind of like giving them a little too much harshness here. I mean, come on, let's like enjoy it at the same time.
Enjoy the movie.
With that being said, Kevin, come on, man, just call me. Like,
he has better ideas.
I could have helped on this one, man. No, I love what they're doing with the overall thing, but yeah, they need some fine tuning. But let's go ahead and get into that. I think this is going to be a good point where if you haven't seen the movie and you're just trying to see our review and see, hey, where's it kind of lining in our categories? Like, we love your opinions. This is how we thought of it. Go see it if you want to. Like, this, it's not a big deal. But let's get into the spoilers of things. From this point on, we are talking spoilers in Quantumania.
Finally,
Tony
I can mess
is
up
coming out. He is ready.
Really.
Spoiler time. I want to talk first and foremost. There's a socialism joke in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
There is.
I
Bernie
cannot
made
believe
it to the movie.
He made it. He made it. Now, was it a good one?
Bernie for all.
Yeah. I mean, was it a good example of socialism? No. It was a bunch of... It was saying... He was like...
Ants are socialist.
Yeah,
That's
like ants are socialists.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all like mindless little insects that just do what they're told. Like,
but you know what? Ants don't have a currency.
And they're all in it together, which is one thing like I did really like about this movie is that, like, even though they're in the quantum realm, all this stuff's going on, it's still an Ant-Man movie. And yeah, Kang did get defeated by a bunch of ants, but it's an Ant-Man movie.
But
it makes sense.
Hey, I guess, yeah. But
We did tell you spoilers, not our fault.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I did really like that scene where they're in the possibility storm.
Oh yeah,
that was
the probability storm.
Really good.
That was really cool.
Really,
I really
cool.
liked that, and they definitely
cool.
They all gathered together, kind of like a horde of ants in the end, because they all had the same goal. That was a really cool thing.
Yeah.
See, this is where Ant-Man fell flat for me, and because I loved the concepts they were presenting in this movie. They were fun. They were cool. The buildings were alive. Like, this was what I wanted to see out of this movie. Unfortunately, where this kind of fell flat is they had really cool concepts, and they didn't really dig deep into them. They didn't spend time expanding any of this. And even when it came to Kang, they just kind of glossed over it. Like the Impossible Burger really stands up when it comes to this movie.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
I'll get into what I think. Tony and I had a brief conversation before this got started about. He asked me why people should listen to me on this movie, and I told him I'm not a real critic. You know, I can only take movies for what they are. The issue I have is I'm just an armchair expert. You know, I'm just sitting here watching a movie, being like, "Oh, here's my opinions, and I think I'm right."
Yeah.
But when I look at a trailer and I get excited for these movies, I build up a story in my head, and that doesn't bother me. Like, sometimes I can set the expectations too high, and I think the movie's going to be better than it is. Thor, Love, and Thunder.
Yeah.
But the issue is whenever I'm watching these movies and I see the concept they set up in the trailers, which for this movie was, in the whole series of Ant-Man as a whole, really, was Ant-Man is this guy who has lost time with his daughter, who is desperately trying to make it up, right? So Scott was thrown into prison and had his daughter taken away from him for years. Then he gets out of the system and he has to try to build that relationship with his daughter again. And his ex-wife doesn't really want him to have that time because, well, he's a con without a job. And all he knows is thieving, and he's got to stop thieving. Then superpowers come in, and hey, you got to steal again. But it's for good this time, and now you're an Avenger. And now it's someone that his daughter can look up to as a role model. And his ex-wife is proud of him. And even her cop boyfriend is, hey, man, you've turned yourself around. We're proud of you. We want you to spend time with your daughter. The blip. He loses 5 years with his daughter. 5 years that he will never get back. He comes back on the first thing he does is look for her. At the end of the day, everything about Ant-Man is looking for the love of his daughter. This took that concept, and they had a villain whose whole his whole motivation is, we have both lost a lot of time. It is the one thing I can give you. And they use it as a plot device for Van Dyne's character. She had moments taken away, and she was going to go back to her daughter, and that's what Kang offered her. Instead of sticking to the heart of the story of Ant-Man and saying, hey, Scott, I need your help to get this time, but if you do this, you can have that time with your daughter that you lost and desperately want to make up for back with your daughter. Instead of offering that to him, he does the hammy villain thing of, hey, help me out or I'm going to kill your daughter. It would have been so much better if he said, hey, I can give you that time back. The thing he wants more than anything. At the beginning of this movie, his daughter is going down the same path he was. Yeah. She was getting arrested, and they even make a joke about it. He's like, oh, this is your third time in jail? Fourth.
Oh,
because he's trying to seem cool to his daughter in the same scene. And even then, the reason why there's no stakes in this movie is because at this moment where Kang's like, hey, I'm going to kill your daughter if you don't help me, even the daughter's like, don't help him. I don't want you to do this. Like, this isn't going to help our relationship. So if he would have come at it like, hey, you have to do one more bad thing to do good for the universe like you did in the first two movies, that would have been a much better story. But instead it was the hammy, I'm going to kill her because I can, and here's how I can do it. I'm going to twist my fingers. Yeah. So that's where it fell flat.
Yeah, that scene, it was a very intense, like, not interrogation, but, like, you know, in the jail scene, it was very big, and I thought we were going to get a more intense kind of stakes.
And even then, this is something else I thought, too, was in this alternate universe, this other timeline that Kang destroyed, unfortunately, in my version of the movie, I think it would have been really cool that Kang used this time concept to try to get Scott to do what he wants. And I thought it would have been so cool. They recast the character of Scott's daughter. And honestly, they didn't give her enough in this movie to do it, but I know Catherine Newton's very well established. She's a great actress who wasn't given much in this movie, but they want her for the Young Avengers or whatever's coming forward. They want to build her as a character that's going to be centralized in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That being said, how cool would it have been if they kept the original actress for most of this movie and this whole thing of him wanting to get this time back with his daughter, and in the end, Kang wins, and Kang gets out, and he gives him what he promised him and says, all right, Scott, you're going to go back and you're going to get those 5 years with your daughter. And when he does, it's Catherine Newton's Cassie Lang instead. He still got what he wanted. It's still his daughter, but it's not the daughter that he knows.
Yeah.
That would have been tragic.
And so all of this... Yeah. This villainy that he did, the crimes that he committed to help Kang to get that time back with his daughter, it wasn't his version of the daughter, so it was all for naught. Oh. Man, how cool would that have been?
That would have been
Kevin,
cool.
Call me, bro.
Yeah, for reals, bro.
God,
you see, that's the
really
reason
good.
why I like the movie, but then I didn't like it that much anymore after I see what it could have been. which is
Yeah.
So I ruined it for not only myself but Tony as well, and now
Yeah.
Marshall.
Yeah.
Marshall's over there like,
Yeah.
that would have been great.
Yeah,
Like,
that
Matt,
would've been
write
cool.
a movie.
Yeah. Now I'm like, I want to go watch Ant-Man 2 again, hoping it's different. It's like, no, it's still the same.
Yeah.
Still the same one. But
yeah, that would have been amazing. I mean, that would have really like set up how crazy Kang is.
Yeah.
It would have been a tragic hero movie.
Yeah.
And I think that too. I'm really ranting here, and I'm sorry. I'll
Go
just
for
take
it.
it away.
Go for it.
But,
That's
Go
good
for it.
stuff. Good stuff.
I think the issue with Kang in this movie too is Jonathan Majors did such a good job, and I'm so excited to see more of him. But they already oversaturated him in his first cinematic debut,
Yeah.
where you did hold on to every word that he had, and he was sinister and villainous. They tried to make him sympathetic, but then they didn't dive deep enough into that to make it seem like he actually was a good person. Like they really tried to set it up like he was going to be like not the evil version of Kang that he is, but he still was.
Yeah.
But at the end of the movie, you have the Council of Kangs, which is, to Rick and Morty fans, you have the Council of Ricks, which is based off the Council of Reeds, who Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four is Kang's great-grandfather. I don't know if y'all knew that.
I did
What?
not know
So
that.
this is, I think his name's actually like Richard, or, yeah, he's the great-grandson of Reed Richards. And so he's from like the 30th century, and he comes back to this time and creates all the different timelines into one so he can control everything. He's the conqueror. But they showed all the different versions of him in the future, and instead of being the Council of Reeds, it was the Council of Kangs, and it made him seem silly. He didn't seem more sinister. Like, the scary thing about Kang is he's done everything. He's seen everything. He's the TVA.
Yeah.
He's cutting off every variance that's not exactly what he wants it to be. And the second you think you've won, here comes his variance. That's a scary concept, and that's what Loki set up, and it was supposed to be this big thing. But then you get to this after credit scene, and it's very silly. They do the Rama Tut Kang, they do the Iron Lad Kang, they did the Immortus Kang, like all these three big villainous things, and he's just silly. And then they go back to, like, I don't know, the 19th century, and he's like, a goofy professor!
Yeah.
And it's, why do we have an Einstein version, like a cartoon Einstein of Kang?
Yeah.
So I no longer have a fear of him. Instead of it being this constant wave of, okay, we finally defeated this Thanos Avengers level threat. Oh my God, the next one's even worse, and he's here now. It's, how many of these stupid Kangs are we going to have
Yeah.
before we get to the real one?
And yeah, which ones, like, which Kangs are actually conquerors?
Yeah.
We don't even know. We don't even know.
By the way, I thought He Who Remains in Loki was really cool too. Like,
He was more
and
mysterious.
when he was more mysterious there. He was more menacing there, but it was really, he wasn't menacing in the way that he was a scary villain. It was the fact that he just didn't care. He's like, look, man, if you kill me, I'm just going to come back. Like, why are we fighting right now? That's who his Kang was. He knew he was going to win, and it didn't matter. In this movie, he was more sinister, and he was more of a villain, but he still got beat by Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Like, how is he supposed to kill all the great Avengers and then lose to a pile of ants?
And that's what's confusing, too, because he was the one that was banished from all of the Kangs, right?
He's like the worst one.
Because he was the worst one.
Well, even if I don't know if he was the worst one, but like, they went through this whole route of, what did you see when you saw into the mind of me and you saw all the variants of me and all the timelines? They try to kind of humanize him there, and then it was like, they threw all that away. Like, it could have been he was exiled because he was one of the good Kangs. Like, he was trying to stop it all from happening. That's why he had his time machine. He got banished here, was because he was trying to stop the Kang and the Conquerors.
Yeah.
And so you could have had this very personal Kang who was the Reed Richards' grandson, and you could have gotten with him, and you would have been like, oh, man, I actually like him. I can see his point of view.
Like, he
and
could
then he
help
dies.
us. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
And
so
then you get the real villain.
Yeah.
Who comes through. Like, you still could have introduced Kang and made him a sympathetic character
Yeah.
or saw it from his perspective, but they didn't do that. They just kind of set up the concept and threw it away, which is fine. I like him as a villain anyway, but I just don't think this villain knew what they wanted him to be, and that's where it struggled.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, clarification here. So whenever his ship crashed, and he happened to crash right next to Michelle Pfeiffer's character, so whenever she touched that ship, she saw like his past, that Kang's past, or all of Kang's past.
She
variants.
didn't really say for sure, and that's why I thought it would be a fun concept to kind of play with. Is
Exactly.
everything we saw in the past of Kang in this movie was he was just a sympathetic guy. Like he was stuck there too.
Yeah.
And then when she saw into the mind of Kang and all the different timelines and the multiple universes dying, it didn't have to be this version of Kang. It could have been anyone.
Yeah.
Because he even begs the question. He makes you question it yourself in the theater. He says, like, when you saw into the mind of the timelines of me, what did you see? I've always been curious. And you think in that moment he's going to say, like, that's what I'm trying to stop. That's why I was banished here. That's why I was exiled. And I have to get out. And I can give you the time and yours, and I can protect your timeline. But I have to go and try to use the Avengers to kill the Kang over here. They could have done that. Or he could have just been the villain from the first part. But why is he trying to get sympathy from this one human stuck on the quantum realm? Who cares?
Yeah.
Why are you putting on a face for that?
Instead, they just throw all that timeline away and be like, oh, nope, I'm still the bad Kang.
Still the bad Kang.
Dang. And of course, like, she was the only one who could help him.
Yeah.
True. It was, I feel like they, like you said, they didn't know what to do with this Kang. It was like, I feel like he was going on a good route, but then maybe like at the end they were like, nah, he's just a classic standard mustache twirling bad guy that needs to go fist on fist with the superhero. Which I like that scene. Did y'all like that scene with seeing Antman all bloodied and...
Yeah, I did. I thought Kang's fight scene was good, even though it was with Ant-Man, who's kind of a joke of a character, at least in the Marvel movies. I did think it was really cool to see Kang kind of knowing what was coming and using that, and you could see how sinister he was going to be. That was really, really cool. The other thing I think that would have been really awesome is if they were going to keep the route they did with Kang, and he did lose the way that he did, Scott goes back to his time. They've set up the concept in Infinity War and Endgame that Scott was only in the quantum realm for 2 hours and he lost 5 years. This time he was in there for days. Like, what if he came back 10 years later and even though he defeated Kang and maybe even, like, they raised the stakes and he lost the time with his daughter or he lost his daughter and his family, what if he came back and Kang still won?
Yeah.
Like, he killed what he thought was Kang and he stopped everything and then he gets back to his Earth and
Kang is still there.
Oh, just a different Kang came.
Which is, they kind of hinted at that a little bit. Remember, Antman was like, is everything okay? This is like,
he questions it himself. He's like, I totally stopped him. Right? Did I stop? No, I'm not going to worry about it. They just make it silly again. But it's like, Kang should be scary. He is scary.
Which also goes back to, like, I guess, like, they're kind of mimicking how Ant-Man did the same thing as what the mom did. And just not saying anything about what happened in the quantum realm whenever she was there for 30 years.
But also, her thing was from, like, a trauma role. Like, she saw something that was terrifying that probably kept her up at night and gave her PTSD, but, like, she thought she had buried it. She thought there was no way he could possibly get back out.
Yeah, so I guess that's why, like, I just don't want to talk about it anymore.
Which, when it was happening and they got thrown into the quantum realm and they set up the whole thing of, like, you send a signal into the quantum realm, like, oh my God, now everything's going to go sideways. Yeah. Like, you even think, I thought to myself at least, like, they took the two most lovable guys in the MCU, Chris Pratt and Paul Rudd, and they made them the reason why Thanos won.
Oh, I did not think
I thought that would have been really cool too, but again, it's more of the thing I've built up in my head after watching it that I'm like, oh, they should have done this. But again, another timeline that Kang the Conqueror killed, that's just... It's a dead timeline.
Yeah, I mean, so now, like, what, is each individual superhero going to get their own fight against Kang now until all of them are gone? Ooh. And then we have an Avengers movie, and then they fight more than one Kang?
I mean, that's kind of what I'd like. It would be almost like a Doctor Strange effect of, like, you go and Dormammu is, like, constantly killing him. And it would be so cool if, like, they finally beat Kang and then... like, the next one just popped up, like, and finished the sentence because he knew it was going to happen, and you can't actually stop him. Like, even when you win, you lose. And that was something that they put in the trailer, too, with Paul Rudd, was, I don't have to win. We both just have to lose.
That was a badass line, yeah.
And that would have been cool, but, again, they threw it away.
And then I was like, I was mentally preparing, like, for Ant-Man to die. Like, even with the trailers before the movie. Yeah. Even in that scene, I was like, oh, well, Ant-Man's going to die.
Honestly, I would have loved it if they kind of kept him in the quantum realm. Like, at the very end,
let's talk
they
about
made
that.
it to where the Wasp came back and saved him, and then it was Ant-Man and the Wasp, and he lost his daughter, but It was to keep his daughter alive, and she went back to reality. They could have still used her for the Young Avengers or whatever else they wanted, but Ant-Man made peace with it, and he was stuck in the quantum realm, just like Michelle Pfeiffer's character.
Yeah.
Had to be there for 30 years, but it's for the good of the world.
Yeah, I know.
So that would have been fine, but then they threw it away again.
I know. Really, whenever Ant-Man and the Wasp were like, well, first of all, like, Ant-Man gets beat up by Kang, and then the Wasp is like, oh, let me just hop back at the exact point as where I left and just save the day. And then, like, then the portal ends. It's like, okay, well, and then they look off into, like, you know, the destroyed, like, kingdom, and then, like, all the people that they, like, helped.
Celebrating.
Like, oh, okay, well, they're gonna, like, rebuild
Yeah, they were
this.
going to be, like, the conquerors of this place. Like, they were going to run it.
And then, like, the daughter could be, like, in the Avengers, and then eventually, you know, like, try to
could
find her way
reunite.
back.
But also, like, we kind of talked about this, too. Like, there doesn't need to be an Ant-Man 4 or, like, a Thor 5. Like, these characters work on their own, like, as side characters. They can add a lot to the story, and we can still get all those good interactions we want from Paul Rudd and from Chris Hemsworth. But we don't need an Ant-Man 4. Like, it would have been great if they kept him in the quantum realm just so he didn't have to continue in Ant-Man 4, but he could come back whenever they want. And then it's just the easy plot devices. Oh, we finally got out. Like, they're like, oh, man, you've been gone for a couple of years. He's like, for a few years, I thought I was gone for 30 years. Like, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, he had the option to come back whenever they wanted him or needed him. What I think they could have done with, like, Chris Evans, Captain America. He went back in time. He could kind of come back whenever he wants. We don't know how many lifetimes he spent away.
Yeah.
So he has the option. Tony Stark, not so much. Unless they did another timeline version of him. But
I've heard that he is coming back.
As an
I've heard he's
AI,
coming back
right?
as a flashback, though.
Oh, yeah.
Or, like, part of his AI or whatever.
I heard
Yeah.
that.
But he won't be continuing the story arc that he already had.
Yeah. Well, the thing...
But leaving Ant-Man in the quantum realm, he still could.
He still could
Right.
have, yeah. But, I mean, what's next for Ant-Man, though? What do you think? He's just going to be a side character from now on? Or I feel like that's the best option for him. Maybe, like... I feel like they should have actually, real fast, killed Hank Pym at some point. Because I feel like he's, like, done. Don't you think? I mean, he's
Actually,
like...
I did see an interview with Michael Douglas, and they said if there is going to be an Ant-Man 4, like, would you come back for it? Like, what would be the thing that brought you back to Ant-Man 4? And he said, if I could die.
like,
He said,
for
if I
reals,
do get
though.
call back to Ant-Man 4, I want to die in that movie.
For real.
Yeah,
You know,
And you can
tough.
kind of see that, too, in this movie. Like, he just wasn't given anything to do, and he was just like...
No.
He is such a massive talent that was just wasted.
Same with the Wasp.
Yeah.
She
I
had
also
no
thought...
lines.
I can't think of the guy's name, but... did you ever watch The Good Place?
no.
Oh, no,
The
I
guy
haven't.
who played Chide Anagonia, he was in this movie, and everyone fan casted
Oh,
him
the
as
guy
Reed
with
Richards.
the head?
Yeah, with the
That
mind.
character was so awesome.
Yeah, they kind of wasted him too, and I wish he could have played another character in the MCU.
I know, yeah, like, I was really, like, excited. You know, we talked about, like, we didn't have the original characters from all the other two Ant-Mans. Like, oh, what about these new characters from the quantum realm? And they kind of, like, brought some of them up, but really it was just kind of lackluster. I mean, we had that woman warrior character. She was awesome.
What was her name?
Don't even know. Her
Exactly.
backstory was just
Exactly.
that she was
I can't
under
tell you any of
Kang's
the
rule.
So
side
cool.
characters' names. The only thing I can tell you is the 5 white characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, diversity
Kang.
alert. Yeah,
Yeah, diversity
exactly,
alert, yeah.
exactly. I know if we could have, and then going back, it would have like made more sense if like they built up these quantum realm characters for Ant-Man to like hang out with in the quantum realm.
At the end of the
Or
movie.
brought them into the Avengers later on.
Yeah, or just call them up and be like, hey, we need your help.
You know, and stakes could have been raised by killing off like Michael Douglas or Michelle Pfeiffer. I feel like that
They
would have
could have
been
killed
more,
all of them, and it would have been fine. They're not doing anything for the other
exactly,
stories.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just something we don't know, I guess. I mean, maybe Ant-Man's going to be the next, like, Tony Stark kind of, like, leader role.
Well, maybe if he was like the actual comic book character of Scott Lang, but he's not. He's not this smart scientist. He's not Hank Pym. He's not creating the technology. He stole it and is allowed to use it. And even then, it's more for jokes and giggles, which is fine. I like the other two. Like, they were a breath of fresh air when it came to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what it was doing. But I think from now on, he just needs to be kind of the joke character that gets turned into a baby in the Avenger movies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Or go back to the heart of it. Give him a real heartfelt story that he can really embellish on and do well.
Yeah, and I feel like with this movie, they just tried to combine those two, and it just didn't really work out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the jokes, they were they like would have been good if it was in a different, circumstance. The jokes were okay. Y'all want to talk about the MODOK scene?
Actually, yeah, that's what was
we
bringing
haven't
me
talked
right
about
into it
MODOK.
was I love how they kind of handled MODOK and again, it's completely different from the comics, and I really liked the MODOK from the comics, and I really thought the other guy from Hydra was going to become MODOK. He kind of already was.
Yeah.
So they kind of rewrote MODOK that was already in the
Wait,
cinematic
which guy
universe.
from Hydra?
I can't think of the guy's name. He was the short guy with glasses. He worked with Red Skull.
Yeah.
And then he came back in Civil War as a
Oh
computer.
yeah,
As
as
a
a
I thought
computer.
he was going to be the future of MODOK.
That would have
in the
been.
MCU.
That would have made
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Well, also, like, let's mention the MODOK TV show
Yeah,
with Patton Oswalt.
Yeah.
That show is hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and there was like hints of that similar type character in this one,
Yeah.
like comedic wise.
I think they did a great job with his character design too, because they wanted to make the fans happy and be comic accurate of like he's a giant floating head, but they did it in a better way. I think we all remember Green Lantern that came out in 2011. Same thing, the Thinker's a guy with just a giant head, and that was
Oh man.
horrible.
Yeah.
Catastrophic and just unbelievably bad.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with MODOK. Like, he's always going to be a silly character. So for him to take himself seriously and be like, I am the ultimate death machine, they're like, dude, you got baby legs.
Yeah.
That's the perfect way to treat this character.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
did a good job at introducing and like, acting towards that character.
Yeah.
So and like that they did bring him back and it was like, oh, it's the bad guy from the first one. That's
Yeah.
cool.
That was cool. I did I don't have any issue like with it being Darren Cross at all. And honestly, I think he did a great job voice acting it. Like, I didn't see him very menacing in the first one, but like he did a really good job adding to his character.
He like
Yeah.
redeemed himself a bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the end of MODOK.
Is he dead? Like
He's
completely?
dead.
Yeah, at least this timeline.
He exactly.
In this timeline,
Well, yeah, he
though.
sacrificed himself for the quantum.
And he's an Avenger. He's not really. I feel like they were just trying to make him feel better.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
he was like, "I'm an Avenger now." They're like, "Sure, buddy. Yeah, okay." And then he dies in peace. I'm like, "Oh, that was cute."
Yeah, there were definitely like weird like jokes going on while people were dying in this movie.
for some reason.
Kind of awkward, but
But I don't mind that if it's done well.
if it's done well,
Mhm.
Because as much as Joss Whedon is shamed upon in the community now, he did a really good job of that. And I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something he said like
Make
10
it-
plus years ago where he's like, go ahead, like, kill off the main character, make him cry, make him sad, but for God's sakes, make
do a
him laugh
joke.
after. And you see
Mm.
that perfectly encapsulated when it comes to Agent Coulson when he died in Avengers.
Yeah,
Like, he had a death that kind of shocked us all. It was like, oh, the guy who interlinked everything just died, but he made us laugh. Because in the tension and where we're all just feeling it, we're gripped in, we're like, oh my God, did that just happen? He hits you with, so that's how that works. And it's like,
yeah, bro.
he breaks the tension. It's perfectly well done.
Yeah.
But there were no stakes. There was no tension. There was nothing to cut with a knife and
Yeah.
to break open. It was just, okay, yeah, dude, you're an Avenger now.
all right, and you're dead. All right, it's been a crazy day.
Yeah.
That was sad though. It was an emotional film. I feel like it wasn't too like Titanic or something like bawl your eyes out, but it did have its little moments for sure.
I would definitely put this up there with Interstellar
Oh, for sure, yeah.
when it comes
Yeah.
to concepts
Yeah,
and scientific accuracy.
Mhm, yeah,
really
totally,
question
yeah.
my political stance towards sociology,
Socialism.
towards
I felt
Socialist
the burn.
concepts. It was. I liked it.
And you were right. Bill Murray was very highly marketed in this movie as almost being like a villain. And people were like, we're going to have MODOK, Kang, and whoever Bill Murray's character is as villains. And he was only in it for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
He very much Bill Murray'd this role.
Yes,
Bill
he
Murray.
did. Yeah,
Like-
what else can you expect? It's Bill
Yeah,
Murray.
it's Bill Murray. He's. I feel like he's just getting into random movies like Zombieland. Remember that?
Yeah, he was.
He's just going in for a little bit, gets killed or whatever, and then leaves. Yeah.
Yeah, he did a Bill Murray cameo.
I mean,
Bill
same
Murray
thing
killer.
with Sylvester Stallone in Guardians 2.
Guardians.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought like, oh my gosh, he's gonna be the next like character, and it's like, oh no, he's just doing
It's just
an Adrian performance. Okay, thanks.
his retirement money Just give me that paycheck. I'm in a novelty movie right now. So
Yeah.
Well, do you guys have anything else you want to add about this movie? Anything the listeners should know about?
not my favorite Ant-Man movie. I like the second
Okay, how would
one.
you rank them?
I would rank them
Just
2,
Ant-Man movies.
2, 1, and 3.
2, 1, and 3. Okay, Marshall.
As I was like driving towards the theater, I was with my mom and like, what happened in the second one again? And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That one girl that like was stuck in
Ghost.
between. Yeah, that was.
Right.
They played her character very well. I'm gonna say, I don't know, 1.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
I'd go 1, 3, 1, 3, 2.
1, 3, 2.
I was thinking about going that way too.
I love that all three of us had different opinions on that.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
movie ranked different. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is weird. Yeah. I liked Ant-Man, the second one, just because they had the Wasp and the Ghost one. I feel like there was more dynamic in character. The first one was just, Iron Man 1 again, but with Ant-Man. It was just like the good suit and the bad suit, but that's just me.
I don't know. I think
It was different.
All right, well, I think we milked this movie for all it's worth.
Yeah.
yeah.
Very juicy. Well, it was juicy.
I mean, go watch it.
Yeah, go watch it. It's good.
Go watch it.
And then let us know in the comments what you thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let us know what you thought about all those different 5 categories,
Do you
and like how
agree?
you would have changed them, or how you would have changed the movie in general.
And if you would pay more to see my timeline of it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yes.
Start a petition. Get Matt working with Kevin
Seriously.
Feige. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He has good ideas.
Just
Can make it
rewrite.
work.
Can you just rewrite all of like Phase 5, like going
Yes,
forward?
please.
I can and I will.
Yes.
He can and he will. That was bad.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Wait. Okay. So what's the next Marvel movie?
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the
Guardians
Galaxy. That's gonna
Galaxy
be an emotional one.
That one's gonna be
That one's-
sad.
It's gonna be brutal.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I hope I'm not Thor and Ant-Manning myself,
Oh,
but
hopefully
I know.
not.
Like, are we?
I believe in James Gunn, and I'm excited for what he's going to do with the DCU. But that's a whole another video and podcast in itself.
Yeah. But I mean, we'll be back for Guardians 3. Matt, would you like to join us for Guardians 3?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, Guardians
Yeah.
3.
Maybe we can try to convince Bellin to watch it.
Doubt it, but we'll never know. You never know.
She's more of an I am Groot, not a we are Groot.
Oh, that's a good one. Hear that, Bellin? Give Marvel a chance again. Get back with your ex-boyfriend, Marvel.
Intergalactic shots fired.
Bro.
Well, this has been Antman Quantumania. Go watch it. It was fun. And thank y'all for watching this episode. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe, the usual. And let us know what you thought. And Matt, where can the people find you?
Yeah. Do some promotion.
What's the address?
Yeah, you can find me. My handles are typically Rankin Power Washing, Matthew Rankin 1 on Instagram. I'm also going to be starting Houston's Finest podcast coming to you this summer.
Ooh.
So it's going to be a
there
really
you
cool
go.
podcast. We're going to get with local Houston entrepreneurs, restaurateurs, athletes, and so on, people who are making Houston great again and how they're getting to
Making
be there.
Houston
You're going to
great
get to
again.
know the names or the faces behind the names of the great Houstons,
Yeah.
great Houstonians.
I-
It's going to be a good podcast. We're going to have to re-record everything multiple times.
Yeah. I heard you might even have like Mattress Mac on there.
Bro.
That may be in the works.
Well, you never know. Gotta stay tuned.
Exciting. Well, Matt, thank you again for letting us watch the movie on the pre-screening, pre-release. It's so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I've
And
never seen movies
If you
like that.
guys ever want to come see the Marvel premieres, we're doing them. At Star Cinema out in spring. Tickets are $12. We do rent out the entire theater. There's typically
deal.
50 seats available. It's cheaper than most tickets, and you get to see it a day early.
For
Food's
reals.
fantastic. The environment's great.
yeah.
You get to see all the movie milkers in person.
Yeah,
Oh,
you get to
yeah.
see it with us.
Famous dudes, yeah.
And if you're lucky and you pay enough, we may let you on the podcast.
If you pay, only if you pay.
Only if you pay.
But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Matt, again for letting us watch the movie.
Thanks so much for having me.
And yeah, for being on here, giving us your great opinions, and hopefully Phase 5. You're going to give us Phase 5 of Marvel.
Phase 5. Oh, you have to come up with a milk-related name. I'm 2%, and he is
I'm like
classy. No.
I'm lactose-free milk.
lactose free.
I mean, I'm full fat. I'm whole
Oh.
milk. But, can we just call me Mama Milk Matt?
Mama Milk Matt.
Mama Milk
I like
Matt.
that. Mama Milk Matt.
Mama Milk Matt.
On the Movie Milkers, the new member.
Thank you guys, and drink some milk and watch some movies.
In general, it could just be Marvelous Matt, Marvel Matt, or we can do Rankin reviews.
Yeah, this
Rankin
is the
Rankin
Rankin
Reviews.
reviews.
Coming
Rankin
to you, a new
Reviews.
podcast.
Yeah. Rankin Reviews. There we go.
Yeah.
Be my guest segment on the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you again for coming on, Matt. Thank you guys at home. Go watch Antman. It's fun. Try not to just complain about everything, all right? Just try to enjoy it.
It's a little story with a big heart.
There we go. You see, you should be in the promotional department. Dang, man.
Phase 5 coming soon.
Peace. Bruh.